Hey, what up? Welcome to the Sequential Geek YouTube channel. That's right, I be that Sequential Geek. Welcome to the Sequential Hood, y'all. This is a Dalhala haul I got here. Right here for $1 each. I'm going to be reviewing some comics. The fifth one is actually part of a trade paperback anthology from Pidge. And just want to give a shout out, start off to all the men and women that have served in the United States military. Thank you for your service. Last Saturday on the 16th, it's the 30-year anniversary of Desert Storm. This particular comic, this first one right here that I'm going to be reviewing, is by Don Lomax. Written and illustrated by Don Lomax. You might know him from the Vietnam Journal. This is an ad for a trade paperback that collects some of the issues that he did about depicting the Vietnam War, and I've also noticed after reading this Desert Storm journal that also depicts journalism during wartime. This writer, Don Lomax, has this character called Scott Nighthammer as the nickname Journal. Middle name Scott, Journal, Nighthammer. And this is issue number 3. This came out in February 1992. It's printed bi-monthly, so the first issue is September 1991, then December 1991 was issue number 2, and this is issue 3 in February 1992, printed bi-monthly. The inside page on each issue, this ran for 9 issues, it lists alphabetically by state, roll of honor. Not sure if you can read that. Source, U.S. Department of Defense Casualty Report Summary. And you've got name, rank, service, hometown, age. The artwork in this is outstanding. The first page here, he's talking about what's been going on. This particular issue, the third one, starts off around the 20th of January, a good 4 days into the war. He initially is going off about how at least 5,700 sorties were flown against targets in Iraq and along the Kuwait border. They were bombing railroad stations and nuclear, biological, chemical facilities by the Syrian border, as well as north in Mosul. It's also indicating how the U.S. provided Patriot missiles to shoot down Scuds over in Israel. I remember, the days leading up to that, Saddam Hussein was launching a bunch of Scuds over to Israel, antagonizing, trying to instigate battles. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was going to happen. The panel right here is indicating how the United Nations coalition is into their 4th day. And he's talking down here about how, regardless of all the airstrikes, a ground battle is going to be inevitable. So here we got this really amazing spread of troops mobilizing in Saudi Arabia, heading north. Credits right here. Don Lomax, illustrator, writer, Rose Lomax. It's the inker. So, our hero is this gentleman right here, Scott Nighthammer, Journal, and he's in Tel Aviv. And he's checking in, trying to find his initial contact, Gajaba. And while he's waiting in the lobby, he is approached by these 2 guys. I've noticed, if you look at the face here, kind of like a Cheech and Chong. Dude's face looks like it's more out of Mad Magazine, something real cheesy. And he's just going off how the guy's badge, his identification badge, was in bold letters like Montreal Register, and he's noting how they're like 20 years behind pop culture, and he could tell that there was something shady about him. So his contact meets up with him, finds him there in the lobby, and he offers to take a picture with them, and they bail real fast. They get sketched out. And his contact, this person here from the Middle East, he's telling him the rundown of just people in the lobby there, how given it's an oil-rich country, people are bringing in spies, information gatherers from all over. Journalism is a great cover. He's pointing out how that guy's KGB, that guy's from Cuba, the dude by the elevator there is Mossad, and this guy's like a soldier of fortune. He wanted somebody to take him to Kuwait. And then he asks Scott Nighthammer, he's like, so are we going to Kuwait? Like, to where the battle's about to start. And he says, no, we're going to stay played out. And he picks up a debriefing that this local journalist, good job, had sent him the transcripts from. And he points out that he's impressed that he includes who asked what questions, what newspaper they represented. He was impressed by that. And he goes on about how the bombing is shifting from Baghdad to the 110,000-man Republican Guard that's entrenched just over the border in Iraq, and B-52 sorties are doing more bombing. And he's talking about how back home you've got people protesting the war in Washington, D.C., and I thought it was interesting that he noted how the police indicated that there were 25,000 protesters, but then the protesters indicated that they showed up in a number of 70 to 100,000. Thought that was interesting. And he also has this metaphor here about the yellow ribbon. He's like, not everybody there was trying to tie a yellow ribbon. Not everybody there was just posting signs of hope. And then he continues back at the front, saying how the 1st Division of the Marines had the forward position. They took the brunt of the attack. And he points out often how these ground troops here are basically finding targets for airstrikes. And he continues, which I thought was really interesting, discussing the first air battle. Right here you've got a Cobra helicopter, and I believe, yeah, it's a Warthog. And, you notice they've got this larger exhaust in the back there, a larger engine section there with the Cobra. And he's saying how this first air attack was led by Captain Travis Allen. Now, not all these comics I'm reviewing are going to be in this depth of detail, but I was just really impressed with not only the technical drawings of Desert Storm Journal by Don Lomax, but also the characters, the style of clothes, hair, like people that he showed in the lobby. Kind of made these guys a little bit more cheesier looking. I thought that was funny. It was an interesting touch. So the helicopter pilot here of this Cobra received an anti-tank missile, some shooting from the ground, small arms fire, and he returned fire. And they said that an enemy is only as good as its communications, and how this Harrier was brought in to take out the communications tower. But ultimately, he's pointing out here how it was thanks to these commandos out in the field that were calling in targets. And further describes also some of the details here about how these spotter planes were dropping smoke, and Harriers were coming in, dropping more bombs, taking out these communications facilities. Yeah, and this was for $1. So right here we got, I just saw that movie Deep Horizon, by the way, about the British petroleum oil spill in the Gulf. It took place on an oil rig. Just thinking about how they had to take 9 of these oil rigs. Don Lomax, he's reading the report that his friend gave him, and this is some of the information he's covering now. And he's saying how these 9 oil rigs were initially used as a platform for surface-to-air missiles that the Iraqis were firing, anti-aircraft missiles. And he went on to describe how this frigate, the USS Nicholas, a guided missile frigate, led the attack. And it was attacked by these small gunships, 3 of them. One of them sank, the other 2 surrendered. And then they are continuing their assault on these oil rigs. It's pretty amazing. Saying there were several men from Iraq that were wounded. They basically took all of the oil rigs. Wow. So throughout these issues, Don Lomax has a panel that he sets aside occasionally right here where it says lessons learned. All right. And he's indicating how when they gave rations to the prisoners, they made sure not to include pork, for example. And he points out how lessons learned from Vietnam, that when you treat a prisoner well, the chances of them escaping and providing difficulty is minimized. So now he's talking more about the political conditions in the area. People in Yemen were cheering on Saddam Hussein, and Palestinians were requesting King Hussein to get involved at the time. Nobody knew what was going to happen. I mean, this is back in 1991, 30 years ago. And he points out while Kuwaitis were in Cairo at the discos and complaining about the type of service they were getting, American servicemen were putting their lives on the line to defend Kuwait. Okay, and then good job right now, his contact there, he's saying how impressive the report is, and he's like, I don't have any reporting background. He asked him what his background was. He was saying how he's self-taught. He asked where we're going to be going next. And then this journalist here from the States, Nighthammer, explains, well, we're going to go to Command Center. That's where Schwarzkopf's at. The General Schwarzkopf leading that whole theater at the time. And Gajab is explaining to him how no reporter can go in without a JIB officer escort. And they have to register with the U.S. Military Joint Information Bureau in Bahrain. Then they have to wait their turn at a combat press pool. So they're trying to figure out what to do next. And he's finding out about the restrictions and hoops that they got to go through in order to get things done there as a journalist. So then Nighthammer's thinking, well, I'll just see if I can corner a couple of local U.S. servicemen, see if I can interview them somehow. Just maybe he can find somebody out and about. Job replies to him that you can't do that. You can't just approach people. You can't just approach servicemen. You have to have an officer present, and goes back to those stipulations about waiting your turn at a combat press roll. So his friend Gajab tells him how there's 700 press people registered. This is how you get things done as a journalist. He's saying there's around 700 press people registered. 200 can go into the field max at any one time. And they're divided up into groups, into these press pools. And each one is led by a press officer who tells them who to talk to, what questions to ask, and sometimes even provides the answers. And then he's like, that's not reporting, right? And I thought it was interesting because he's given his take now. He's an old school journalist from Vietnam. And, well, Gajab tells him how there's his companion, his contact, his local contact there is telling him how There's 12 rules limiting what you can say, or you'll get your copy bounced. You'll be requested to do rewrites. And Nighthammer's talking about how back in Vietnam they only had 3 rules. One of them was obviously don't compensate security, don't get in people's way. The other one was don't report casualties while the battle is in progress. And then the third was don't report troop movements until the whole movement is completed. It's an interesting take here on journalism now versus then. As you can tell by his body language, he's getting a little bit miffed, the situation, trying to get stuff done. He brings up another lessons learned caption here, which I thought was pretty interesting. The Pentagon, they hated the coverage of the Vietnam War. All right, right here it says, the Pentagon hated the coverage they got during Vietnam. They had to give a lighthearted spin on everything, keeping the public opinion in their corner. The next panel reads, keep them busy baking cookies, tying yellow ribbons, and having third graders write thank you letters to soldiers. And maybe they won't have time to remember that people die in war. So they're continuing on driving, and he has a moment here wondering what the stopping distance is for an M1 Abrams tank while he's in between a fully loaded Bradley. And here he is asking his local contact here about what potential the Kurds have against resisting Saddam. And his friend saying how Saddam torched over 5,400 towns and villages, including churches and monuments dating back to the Middle Ages. They decimated their farmland and livestock. And also back in 1988, I remember these pictures that were leaked. This village, Halabja, it was gassed. So basically the Kurds have been kept off balance. They're not obviously going to be a threat against the United States plans, but he's explaining how they're pretty much crippled as far as providing any type of resistance against Saddam Hussein. Here they are at the International Hotel in Bahrain, and they got a message at the front desk letting them know that they've got special clearance to interview pilots back in Riyadh. So when they realize that it's back in Riyadh, they plan on getting back in their car, and then they notice a Scud missile getting shot down. And at that point, they know that they're not going to be allowed to drive any further for the rest of the day. And he also points out here that he found reports that when the Scud missiles were shot down, that there were no nerve or chemical agents in the Scud missiles. All right, so he's at the hotel here trying to figure out what to do, and his contact is asking him if CNN is pro-Saddam Hussein, since a lot of the news there is slanted towards the current regime. And he's just sitting back saying no. He's like, they're still in Iraq. Iraq is Iraq at the time. He's like, they're going to be regulated. They're going to be shut down the moment they say one thing slightly bad against Iraq. He's like, you can't judge reporters that are in the field. And then he says that he's reminded of these pilots that were shot down in Vietnam. There were some pilots that were shot down in Iraq that were being posted on the news at the time. And he went on to talk about this one particular naval officer, Jeremiah Denton, who during the Vietnam War was put on the news saying that the United States was doing war crimes, and he was blinking Morse code or some type of code indicating that him and his men were being coerced and tortured. And he concludes here in this panel saying how you can't judge the behavior of someone that's a prisoner of war. So now he is going off about his report here with the pilots that he interviewed. And this particular pilot is a pilot of the Apache helicopter. And he starts off by indicating how during the Vietnam War, the Cobra helicopter was at the top of its game, and now it's being replaced with the Apache helicopter. This guy is going off about the specs of the Apache helicopter, how modern it is, how silent it can be, how it can weave in between sand dunes and pop up top of a sand dune and fire a missile from 5 miles away. Some of the features of it. But he also points out again here how a lot of that is thanks to the men in the field. Off here on the side, you got some people here doing recon, providing targets for airstrikes. Does indicate that the Apache helicopter has 36 Hellfire missiles, or 8 Hellfires, and 38 2.75-inch rounds. And there's also a 30-millimeter cannon with 1,200 rounds of high explosive ammo positioned at the nose of the helicopter, along with night vision. Now, these technical features are also working in accordance to an FO on the ground that lasers a target. And he basically says they point a laser at a target, like that tank, and it reflects a cone that shoots up off into the sky. And their AI picks that up. So the missile, when launched, heads towards its target and then upwards. As you can see, they show it steering upwards. And the most weakest position of a tank, they explain, is at the top. He says that the battle is over in less than 5 minutes. And he gives further props to the men on the ground here, saying how the commandos on the ground are moving up and leaving the area to find another target. So to conclude this amazing comic book by Don Lomax, after interviewing the pilots, he goes back to his hotel. They get immediately approached by some men from the CIA. So he's approached by these men from the CIA, and they're upset that he interviewed those pilots. They're upset that he didn't have clearance, that there wasn't a press officer with him, and he's calling him on it. He's basically saying, you know, I did get a message at the front desk when I tried to check into this hotel. Told me I had clearance. He said there was no paperwork for it, though. And he's calling it a setup because now that he interviewed those pilots, they're trying to bring the hammer down on him, saying he's a threat to national security because he got the interviews without an approval. And he's saying that that message that he got at the hotel for the clearance to interview the pilots was actually a setup. Scott Nighthammer's calling him on it, saying that they're trying to set him up. And, he's defending himself, telling them how that his reviews of the military have always been kind and have been actually more favorable than other journalists that reported on the war in Vietnam. So he gets to the point where he's like, oh, well, you guys aren't going to kick me out. You're not going to throw me in jail, so you're just going to try and make everything difficult for me. And he goes on. It's interesting how he points out how he was at the embassy when Ambassador Graham Martin's chopper lifted off the roof in Vietnam when the U.S. Embassy was being invaded, and they closed it down, left the skin of their teeth, basically. So he's professing his patriotism and trying to tell these CIA men to get off his back, and they're like, well, somebody up there obviously doesn't like you, and at this point they're telling him that his stories are going to be redacted. He has no privileges to print anything that he's done so far. So they're trying to take away his privileges to be a reporter. They're trying to make things difficult for him. And he's sitting here thinking that he's done. He might as well just be reporting what he sees on TV. Well, his contact's telling him there is another way. And thus concludes issue number 3 of Desert Storm Journal. $2.75 cover price. Pretty amazing issue. We got some samples in the back from after World War III. Some post-apocalyptic comic here, also by Don Lomax. Here we've got some reprints from the Vietnam Journal, issues 5 through 8. So not all my reviews are going to be that detailed. Let's get on to the next one. Originally that said Company and Sons. This is the 10th printing by Last Gasp. This was originally printed in 1970. Last Gasp, by the way, hit 50 years last year in 2020. Happy anniversary, Last Gasp. Last Gasp is an indie publisher. Last Gasp. If you ever see Ripoff Press or Last Gasp, those are a couple of indie labels. Some of the originals that I recommend checking out. This is a parody that, according to Wikipedia, had a very positive reception. No wonder, considering it's a male-dominated hobby, right? Sexploitation Comics Group is the actual imprint of this comic. Thrilled to stories of young lust. Oh yeah. So this is definitely adult material. If you are under the age of 18, I'm going to need you to go the fuck away. Get the fuck out. All right. Check it out. It's like an old time ad from the, I don't know, 100 years ago. In 60 minutes of fun a day, I changed myself from this hung up, bloodless, pitiful, skinny prude, Brenda Byrne Farm, before mailing the coupon, Brenda Byrne Farm, after mailing coupon. New, vibrant, red-blooded woman. Now, sister, you mail away this coupon as I did, get these 5 amazing coupons free. 1, transcending your sexual ego. 2, how to avoid that fish smell. 3, how to get your mojo working. 4, the French kissing you. 5, how to mold a mighty grip. How you can win a big 15-inch long bronze puddle. Okay. Let's face it, we may get blown up at any moment by some damn ABM or something. There's no time to waste. Fill out this coupon today. Tired of the double standard, which lets men have all the fun, but says women must wait. I've had it with this morality crap. All right, so this is an anthology. We've got stories by... Whoop, hold up. So we got stories in here by Bill Griffith, who is the creator of Zippy the Clown. If you dig a little bit, doing an internet search, You'll know who I'm talking about. The classic independent icon, Zippy the Clown. And stories by Kinney. Kinney is the editor over at Last Gasp. I know he's done a lot of editing, but he did the artwork here on this inside page. Now, this first story is by Bill Griffith. Down on the bottom right here, it says, satire must never be directed against the class whose aspirations you share. Only against the enemy. Mao Zedong. All right. So we got an anthology here, stories by Kinney and Bill Griffith. So we got this first couple stories, starting off with the woman being initially very timid, kind of following the lead of the guy, submissive, not sure of herself. And then you got one third one that shows this woman who's very opposite of that, kind of had it with her man. All right, let's get into it. I answered a personal ad in the paper, and our home soon became a love nest for three. That's right. So, looks like it's successful. So she's talking about how she can't get their love life to work. No, darling, it isn't you, it's us. Even when changing sexual positions doesn't help. Yeah. So he's talking here about answering an ad in the paper. He wants to have a threesome, and she's thinking it's totally disgusting. She's acting like she's totally against it. That caption there in the upper right, he says, listen, it says here, quote, often by introducing a new element, a couple's sexual activity can be re-stimulated. What some may call perversion is actually, and he's going off. So he is responding to some ad, or they compose their own ad to answer one that's already in the paper, and takes measurements of her. And when she goes to answer the door, of course she falls, lands on hands and knees right in front of the woman that they invited over. She is a minx. She goes straight for her man, and they start going at it, and she's calling it vulgar. She's getting cold feet. She's not into it. And he says, you're so goddamn uptight. Why can't you be free like us? Freedom. And here she is agreeing with him that she is uptight. She's getting nervous, undressing. She's kind of wondering what she's supposed to do while she watches her man get off. And her and this woman start going at it, 69ing. And he's like, hey, what about me? Hope you're proud of yourself with that exhibition. And she retorts, I think I've left little doubt as to who's free in this house. Touche, baby. You win. So he conceded, and they're on an even playing field. Their relationship is rekindled. Everything's back together again. Here they are, talking about how they could never really be able to pay this woman for the bounty of love she just bestowed upon their married life. Thank God for those funny tabloids. Don't forget our date for next Saturday. The end. And the beat goes on, it says right down there. No money, no drugs were being transacted. She might have started off a little bit timid. She's just as happy and confident as he is. God bless America. Next story. This next story is Sinner Salvation. Go through these a little bit quicker. This woman, very indecisive, not confident. She's trying to figure out which guy to choose from. She's got Scott, hippie, thrilling, darling, representing a life free of care and hang-ups, or Glenn, ROTC man, a firm hand, a friendly smile, and promising me a good future and family. So here she is. She's not sure what to do. She is running into this guy her first day at college, and he's making fun of her. I guess back then you wear beanies and these pep outfits. If you're in high school, he's saying how she looks like she's in high school. And he's giving her a hard time, and they start going out, basically. The days that followed were a whirlwind of excitement. He's like, "You never heard of Bob Dylan?" She's talking about Playboy magazines. I guess they do have good articles, but it has all these pictures. He is now introducing her to grass, and she says here, "I crossed my fingers and took my first puff of marijuana. Was it the spell of the grass or my own heart that led me to his arms? My darling," she says. Here she is losing her virginity, and now they're basically going at it. They're going to Planned Parenthood. She's getting her pills. A little bit more satirical drawing there. We got their banging, and they're getting banged by the cops, going to marches. And she sees him talking to another woman, and she gets jealous and tells him to kick rocks. So she's crying, "Oh my God." And this girl's telling her she should find a real man, introduces her on a double date to this guy, the other guy, Glenn, from ROTC. And as you can see, he's the type of guy that actually says, "May I kiss you goodnight?" Yeah. So she's trying to get over hippie guy. And here she is out with Glenn. She sees hippie guy with some other woman, and she's basically off the rebound. And he is telling her how he's getting promoted to be an officer, and they're going to basically have stability, and he's going to have her marry him. And her big confession is that she's not a virgin. And he says he loves you too much not to forgive her. And he says, "I love you too much not to forgive you." And they're going to have a new life together. And of course, they wander into a protest where they are storming the ROTC building. And one of the guys that's part of the protest, the fiance Glenn, ends up fighting the hippie guy that she broke up with, and tells the ROTC guy that he's an animal. Yeah. And then when she says she wants to get back together with the hippie guy, this is the twist. She's like, "I think the hippie life is just not for me." Well, he's actually a police agent, and the woman that she saw him with was the biggest dealer on campus. He was just setting her up for a bust. "Let's face it, I'm a lucky girl. I followed my heart, and it led me true. I made my choice, and I got my man." Yeah, so there's your satire for your second story. We've got kinky clothes for cute kittens. This is not saran wrap. Any modern pervs out there wondering what that is? That's a mummy wrap. Yeah, that one's pretty hot. This is tar and feathered. This one is a boot on the head. And here we got some S&M. Next story up. This was by J. Kinney. These drawings right here. Oh yeah, can't forget. So we got the Sinner Salvation story. Pretty cheesy. I think it's interesting to look at what they're basing their humor off of back then. And we go from the two timid ladies in the last two stories now to this woman here who's totally fed up because she fell for a mama's boy, and mama can have him. She's telling this guy, act like a man. The white hands, the bleeding eyes, that haircut. He didn't even have a driver's license. Next time you buy me a carton of Super Tampex, wear a dress. They'd never know. He's like, oh, gee. Look at those eyes. Damn. And don't gee me, mister. Remember what happened last time. Oh, my God. So he's all, please forgive me. And she's into it. She's just like, oh, yeah, She likes to beat him down and hook up with him. So he's all, you don't love me, and there she is. Locking lips. Until that fateful day when he's talking about borscht. Borscht, some food here. I haven't had a decent bowl since mommy. And then she's freaking out about him not liking her cooking. He likes his mom's cooking better, and she's losing it. She's done. He's like, and I hate margarine. So she's calling his mom, telling his mom to come pick him up. And he says, could I have one last, thinking it'd be a quickie? Well, look at the proportions of this kid, too. It's like he is a little man-child dwarf she's into. No, he doesn't want a quickie. He wants to ride her like a horse, like a boy. She's actually telling him to write. And that's it. He's freaking out about what his dad will think when he comes home. And the mom's like, don't worry. He's gone away on a long trip. Probably left a long time ago. Here is our last story of Young Lust from 1970. This is from 1970, people. All right. Newsprint. Put it on newsprint. Love it. They called Your Young Love pornographic. Once again by Bill Griffith, creator of Zippy the Clown. But we didn't care. So this woman, she basically, this is 1970. It's not like you can go buy porn on VHS, right? Even that back then. So they got to go into these porn theaters. And her friend takes her to one of those 42nd Street type places, because by Times Square, just like one street off of Times Square, New York City, there were these like alleys of porn shops. Been there up until recently, as a matter of fact. I don't know. Why would I know? The 42nd Street type movie theaters down just some like alleyway just outside of the main Times Square theater attraction. They had these theaters. You can see them in like De Niro's movie Taxi Driver, for example. She recognized this kid that she went with in high school is in this porn, and she's talking about how degrading it is, and she can't stop thinking about the guy. And she gets home and she's calling this guy. She can't believe she has a crush on some smut peddler. So here she is falling asleep thinking about this guy in a movie, and she's going for it. This girl is actually, I wouldn't say that she's timid. She might be young and naive, but she's going for it. She's wants to live her life, and she's making the decision of hooking up with this porn star and starting a life with him. She calls the guy, and he's like, what the fuck is this? A crank call? And right off the bat, she's like, all in. I love his reaction. He's like, oh yeah, sure, I know you. What's on your mind? So thought bubble here. Christ, this chick's got a regular hard-on for me. She gives him his address. She can't wait to see him, as you can tell. And he shows up. First thing she says to him is, come on over to the bedroom. And then it happened. They're in bed together. And it gets to the point where he's like, all right, if you're into this so much, I'm going to start taking Polaroids. And they start filming their own porn. And then she tells her friend to go fuck herself because people are giving her judgment calls. They go off into the country and they're going to raise their kid to do various sexploits throughout the years. They got enough money saved, they said here, to last the next 10 years. Lord have mercy. Oh yeah, and this ad right here is funny. I thought it was fucking hilarious. It says right here, I don't know what it is. Guys have this thing for me. It starts with an innocent kiss, but I know they want more and more and more, until finally the moment comes when I have to say, don't ever fuck me unless you mean it. Wow. Right here, apparently I think somebody that's bald is supposed to be more marketable for, it says here, inflatable penis, for selling an inflatable penis. And just to go over this one real quick, this girl, it's just coming of age. She's wanting to be a groupie, fantasizing over being a groupie for Jimi Hendrix. And she's going off about how she's been an early bloomer. And her friend takes her to go see some rock band, God and the Bunwads. Yeah, that's the name of this band. No more lonely nights for me now. She's just thinking about what a great time she's going to have seeing God and the Bunwads. What the hell? And there they are. She's an instant groupie, and he's totally into it. He's taking her off someplace. She's trying to anticipate what will happen, what type of mischief she's about to get into. And this is what throws me off. I don't even find this humorous. This guy's into plants, cutting plants, taking care of plants. He wants them to take off their clothes and go into the forest and chop down plants. And she says that when she's feeling lonely, I beat a little plant in memory of our love. Bam. My rock and roll lover. Not even funny. That was ridiculous. That was really stupid, that last story. This last page, apparently is by Art Spiegelman. And this guy is talking about how at his doorstep he is fated at a lonely life. And at his doorstep he finds this dead body. Apparently he just finds it. Says here that he loves her not just for her body, but the real you. So this guy's into having sex with these dead bodies. The police come because people smell the stench, and now he's in jail feeling like he's been misunderstood. Yeah. Some of this humor doesn't carry for me, but I gotta say, overall, most of these stories I thought were ridiculously campy, funny stuff that I think is good representation of the time of the 70s. It was hokey, it was fun, it's a freaking dollar. Young Lust. by Bill Griffith, J. Kinney, and that last story by Art Spiegelman. All right, let's move on. Wheat Paste. I'm pushing an indie comic here, and the reason I'm just returning to this story really quick, I thought was interesting, is one, the art I think is really cool, and two, this artist isn't really easy on the reader entirely. This stuff takes place in the future. It's like futuristic, and hey, if you were just suddenly transported into the future, you're not going to know how everything works. This artist doesn't really explain how everything works. You kind of got to go along with it and insinuate and put two and two together as people make other references later on throughout the story, which I think is really cool. This creator does a lot of show, don't tell. And I just wanted to point out Pidge because I pointed out a couple of comics from Wheat Paste, the title that Pidge creates. And there were some morose stories. I just wanted to point out how this is actually a bunch of different relationships that people are having, living life. And this one guy is off in space. And like, see how they point out magnets right there for how the shoe is attaching to the ground? I thought that was cute. I thought that was cool. He's in some spaceship, and he realizes that there's no oxygen in the spaceship, and he's going to go fix it. He's just a passenger that happens to be an engineer. One of these personnel right here says that he should go back into his pod, but he's got to handle the situation with why there's air escaping from the ship. So this guy is going in, he's fixing it. As it turns out, these guys right here, they're kind of like pirates, I guess. They're on the outside and they're trying to get into the ship. And this one guy right here breaches the hull and enters. This fish face like being right here is dealing with people here that are dealing with just the problems that are going on with the ship. There's some zero-G problems, I think. People are floating out of their pods, and this is a talking polar bear. And they're like, yeah, could you send more towels? Anyway, he's helping people get back to their pods while this guy's repairing it. This guy's in the operations center, and he's trying to get somebody that's off duty back on duty to help fix the situation. And it looks like this person's at some type of sex party. And this person's like, it's my day off. Screw it. This scene's played out anyway. Yeah. So he's repairing this stuff. He's kind of talking with the personnel that he met earlier, letting them know he's fixing the air problem. He's helping people deal with it, the passengers. They're kind of flirting. Here we're going back to the pirate, and the frames are shifting upside down, right? They're in zero G. I'm not saying necessarily that they're shifting upside down, but he's like walking on the ceiling right here, but it's written upside down. This person's coming in, and as you can see, he's got these like floating things. And when he grabs one, the material on the outside of his clothes disintegrates, and that's fur there. You find out this is like a monkey. It's like these beings are being cloned, and these clones are like primates. And this particular primate, they don't really say why or where any of these people are coming from. This is just what's happening. Wants to steal one of these clones, one of these like embryos, because it feels the need to help someone, to have a family. All right, that's just part of the story. He's done fixing stuff. He wants to get a drink. And one drowning sailor, he says. And then there they are telling what's in the drink. Green olive, that's the sailor. Caspian fish eggs, 190 proof black grain alcohol. And he's back at the bar, and he sees this alien that was working on the ship. And I know this is DIY, independent, self-published book, so I got a page falling out here. Two Tardigan sunsets, and then they say they're celebrating because they were able to fix that breach. I don't think they know that they're being robbed yet. And they're sitting here in this smoke room, and this guy, this fish person wearing this skirt, brings out this smoke pipe, and he's like, "You ever smoke a fire orchid?" And shows the lips while he's saying it. He's like, "Are you trying to lower my inhibitions?" He said, "The seed needs time to flower." And they have these like captions right here that lead to where it's flowering. And you can see it's flowering, this fire orchid. And he's like saying, "Do you feel safe with me?" He's saying how it's a hallucinogen. Fire orchids are a sobering experience. I don't think that turns out to be true, so they end up smoking it, and this fire orchid that they smoke, they share this. He ends up sharing this collective unconsciousness, this collective memory that this fish person's people share. His ancestors are watching this like giant figure destroy these villages, one on the surface, one below. There's like this floating tardigan. She saw the hopelessness in its eyes before it went off to die. "Have you seen this fire before?" He's like, "Show me." Some weird cataclysmic event is in the collective unconsciousness of these people. They use this drug to get in touch with it, I guess, or in touch with pieces of their history, sharing this intimate moment, basically. "Do not pursue the entity. It has shed its form." I don't know, in sharing that intimate moment of that person's heritage, it became sexual. They end up getting it on, and he's saying, Seda is the name of that fish person. And he's like, "I can't see your mind anymore." And then Seda says, "I can see your mind." And he's like, "Don't expect human-like genitalia, okay?" And then he says, "Tastes like saltwater taffy." The human. And the fish is like, "What's that?" That, apparently. And the eyes roll to orgasm. And then the ship's shaking. And they're like, "Well, I don't think that's us." And they go check it out. And then they realize there's that breach. This person stole something. So Seda's contacting the operations center where he works, trying to get everything under control. And this is crazy. You've got this like S&M looking thing. "Catch his scent. Yes. Now pull harder. This way." So this guy's a bounty hunter. And I think that person that went and stole, yeah, this guy comes through, crashing through. Reports of multiple injuries, citing at least 2 armed suspects. And then they almost get the guy, and they realize he's almost ready to shoot this guy. He gets away, does some moves, trips the guy, and then she's like, I'll hold him off. And there's this interesting psychometry. Like she touched him and realized this guy's trying to save this clone. It's like I said, this story, it's not going to explain everything up front. And then, you know, everything's 0G. They got these magnetic boots, right, that help them stick to the ground. So this person's kind of floating off away. And he's like, how about that? A flying monkey. Apes have no tails. This guy's like, fucking flying monkey. And so they basically, he's with her, a fish person, and they decide to fight off the bounty hunters that were trying to steal this embryo that turned into this baby that is a clone. Wild. Floating Buddhas in some meditation room, 0G meditation room. This monkey has got its kid that it stole away. She's like, there's been a birth on form. The entity has changed form. He's like, I don't know if I'm up for this. Kid. And now this covering right here, this is a style that's popping up. I'll get to that in a second. So they introduce each other. Seda, Casimir. And she gets food to help this person in some type of underground pool, sewer area. Very different. Totally different. What am I showing you guys? What the fuck? Where's Sequential Geek going, huh? It's just something different that I thought is really cool. I read this a few weeks ago, and he has to keep covered up because he's wanted. He's on the ship. They go into this elevator. This thing's saying like "Google rule rule," and it's saying like pheromones are coming out of it, and then they wait for this thing to get off the elevator, and they just start laughing. It's interesting. And so she's just saying how she's helping him for the hope that there'll be a better father. Yeah, she's helping him because he's protecting life. It's not just some cargo. And last page, Pidge, the creator here, actually gives instructions here on how to create this, how to add this, sew this into your clothes to take material with these ties here. And, you know, this is pre-COVID. I thought this was pretty interesting. I've seen this style before on TV. This is like issue number 5, I think. Collects issues 1 through 6. It's zany. I know this is trippy. This is zany. It's weird, but that's what it is. I mean, it's really cool like that. It doesn't really explain everything up front. And she's just sending this person that has the kid, the clone, that it kidnapped. She's helping him get off. This is some type of smuggler that's going to help this guy get out. And that's a quick review of something that's like really out there, I know. Casimir was the name of that monkey clone that stole that baby clone. This was the covering. You can create like this hoodie with these ties, and the creator here gives instructions on how to do it. This is no joke. Really interesting. I love that. All right. So there's Infinite Weed Paste. You can find out about that by going to Pidge Comics, P-A-D-G-E, pidgecomics.com. That's weird. That was out there. So let me bring it back to you. Next comic. This was $20. This thing right here. Okay, each issue was like $5. All right. So the rest of these comics are $1. The two I just did, and now the next two. Fantastic Four. Let me take a break. I gotta take a break. Next up, Fantastic Four. People, let's get a little bit back to reality, right? Superhero comics. So, world's greatest comic magazine. And no joke. This is issue number 281. This is a fantastic issue. There's so much information in here that I like to go over. You're going to find this particular comic from the dollar bin quite entertaining. Let's get on with it. Fantastic Four, Volume 1, number 281, cover date, August 1985. You got a newsstand copy right there for 65 cents. The Canadian cover price is 75 cents. Let's get a move on. Do you remember Acne? All right, Stan Lee presents John Byrne, story and pencils. Jerry Ordway's doing the inks. Glynis Oliver is doing the colors. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief, with Malice Towards All. So here we got the Puppet Master and the Hate Monger admiring themselves. So here we have the Puppet Master and Hate Monger getting off over all the mayhem that they've brought. He's talking about how New York's burning. Look at this spread. Damn, there's the Twin Towers. He's going off how he wants New York City to be the center of this nexus of hate that he's created. No one is immune, he's going off. All across the city. Man against woman, child against parent, black against white, Jew against Gentile, blonde against brunette, blue eyes against brown. Not a single human prejudice, however small, that has not grown into a juggernaut. That is our writing back then. Free Oreo tumbler. All right, we got a naked guy working out and a bomb-ass drawing of Sue Storm as Malice, Mistress of Hate. And these hate mongers there getting off saying how their greatest triumph is Malice, Mistress of Hate. He's going off about how his master plan has succeeded, and they're about to set Malice free against the Fantastic Four, considering her their greatest triumphant, having Sue Storm destroy the Fantastic Four. There she is, levitating herself, basically creating a platform as tall as that building, lowering herself upon it. Puppet Master in the background there, looking like Darkseid, indicating how the members of the Fantastic Four are immune to their machinations. That being said, they cannot be sure if someone else doesn't end up becoming immune as well. So they cut to Daredevil, who also happens to be immune to it. He's going through trying to figure out what's going on. These people are openly talking about how it's the color of her skin. It's the reason why they're attacking her. Daredevil steps in. He stops it, and you remember you got to have perspective that this hate monger, right, Puppet Master, the whole plan is in full effect. So this woman reacts to Daredevil. Don't touch me. I don't want no jive honky touching me. Especially don't want no super freak coming nowheres near me. Just let me be. The devil is a super freak, super freak, super freak. And now he's like, we got to go to the Avengers mansion, right? He's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So we cut to Reed Richards and Johnny Storm, and they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Here he is referring to Sue Storm as the Invisible Girl. She's quite possibly our most powerful member, which has always been overlooked and underutilized. And Johnny Storm saying how he's just trying to deal with what's going on, and he makes a reference to Franklin Richards' prophetic dreaming. Reed Richards says that they got to concentrate on this pamphlet. They're saying that the molecular structure of this pamphlet is alien in origin, and it's behind just everything that's been going on, all the chaos. He says, but the fact that he had one previous dream that seemed to come true is no reason to presume precognizance in this case. They're talking about referencing Fantastic Four number 276. Interesting how he also points out how his latent mutant powers, and it's true, they do seem to be showing signs of breaking down the psychic blocks that prevent him using them at full potential. I'm not sure about any type of psychic blocks that have been put in place upon Franklin Richards at this point. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments. Jarvis is coming up, reminding Reed Richards about all the chaos that's going on outside, and this is just another example of how Reed Richards is always out of touch. He's always losing track of what's going on around him often. He sends Johnny Storm out to go check it out. And this is pretty cool because we got some really cool visuals here of the Human Torch, but he's also indicating right here that he can control all flame, even when I don't generate myself. And he's going off saying how he successfully is guiding the fire out of the city, which is pretty cool. Another Omega level powered being. I would definitely say he is another force to be reckoned with. And this is another weird aspect about what's going on with the Fantastic Four back then in 1985, because Johnny Storm is going out with Alicia Masters, Ben Grimm's girl, which I thought was really weird. I've forgotten about that. He wants to know where his sister is, and she's going off how Sue Storm was helping her back to her place. They ran into Reed Richards, and she had this overwhelming feel of this. She had this overwhelming sensation of hate. She lost control, blacked out, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So he's bringing her to regroup with everybody, and they just happen to fly over the She-Hulk, who got pummeled on the previous issue by Malice. Malice is basically, Sue Storm is being manipulated by Hate Monger and Puppet Master. I think Sue Storm created this column that had flattened She-Hulk, and while everybody's trying to figure out what goes on, She-Hulk gets it in 2 panels right here. She knows it's Sue Storm. She's talking about an invisible force field that she encountered when trying to deal with Malice. So she's like, oh my god, it can't be. Fucking She-Hulk is so cool. So he's got this device he wants to put on the roof of the building that's supposed to counterbalance the effects of the alien hypno poison in those hate pamphlets. Just check out this whole caption right here. I got a kick out of reading. He says, I believe the subneural frequency radiated by this device will be sufficient to counterbalance the effects of the alien hypnopoison in those hate pamphlets. He's like, okay. He's like, my goodness. Your brilliance is near legendary, sir. And she makes an appearance. It's Malice. Now, the dialogue here... She's like, don't you mean just a woman, Reed Richards? Someone to be ignored? He's like, who? A woman. Right? I think they're getting at her being referred to as the Invisible Girl a lot. I think probably right after this issue was when she changed her name to Invisible Woman, for all I know. It's my guess. She's going off. She's under the spell of those guys, Puppet Master and Hate Monger, and she's all, what do you mean just a woman? Someone to be ignored, at worst patronized, at best someone to be stifled, frustrated at every turn, capable of bearing children, but never responsibly. Certainly not somebody capable of doing this. She takes the offensive. Look at his artwork right here. So he's trying to figure out who she is, and he's like, you're no match for the Fantastic Four. Damn, that was so badass the first time I saw this. And he's like, I happen to be a scientist. I learned from my mistakes. You won't get the better of me the second time. And she's going off about his ego and how she's going to kill them. Okay. Enter the Human Torch. She envelops him in some type of orb, sphere, reduces the amount of oxygen he can intake to become the Human Torch, and he falls. So this is another cool scene here where we have Daredevil explain his radar sense. When he caught Johnny Storm, he's going off saying, what's the story on that amorphous blob you guys are fighting? And I love, more of that Marvel vocabulary that they incorporate in the dialogue here. It's awesome. He's like, amorphous? He's like, I've been hanging around Reed long enough to know the meaning of shapeless, right? All right. So Reed's going off just saying, I understand that you have the radar sense. And he's talking about how he's like, it's a lump. It's constantly shifting, spheroid. And finally, these guys are like, but what? A bubble of energy, a force field? You mean that? No, oh my God. And there she is, revealing herself. But then why would you consider that your utter defeat could come from the hands of one whom you have no respect? Susan Storm, Invisible Girl. By the way, look at that catalog right here for Dan Sopa's Comic World. Jesus. Yeah. Magnifying glass much lately? Marvel Comics price list. Nice. He's like, no respect, I love you. Bam, she just incapacitated Johnny Storm. He's out. And he's realizing he has to go full on along with this this whole hate, paranoia that she's got brewing. Or if he's wrong, it could get them all killed. The drama. He's going for it. So here she is, threatening him, and he's like, be quiet. He's like, Daredevil and I are trying to deal with Johnny Storm. He's like, he's temporarily incapacitated. He's telling her to shut up. Right there. He's like, we've indulged your foolish female outbursts. He's like, it's not time for any more of your games. And then she's like, I'll tear you apart, I'll squash you and all this. What does she say? I'll smash you. And he goes on telling her, like, we're the Fantastic Four. You'd have been killed outright years ago. But for the rest of us curing you. And then, bam! Susan, I said shut up. Holy shit. He just spacked Sue Storm. She doesn't remember anything that happened. You're free now. I had to force you to truly disrespect me, only for an instant to unbalance the effect, reverse it. And here she is, out for blood. Yes, I remember who did this to me. I know who did it, and I know where he is. And I am going to punish him. Interesting choice of words there. And I am going to punish him. Now this is to be continued, but it's actually going to be concluded in Secret Wars issue number 2. Here's our ad for Secret Wars 2. One of the worst limited series to ever come out of Marvel, I would have to say. By the time Secret Wars 2 hit the stands, the writing was on the wall. There was a bubble that was beginning to brew over at Marvel. Man, I didn't know Jim Shooter is editor-in-chief. I didn't know, was he still editor-in-chief by the time Secret Wars 2 ended? Wow, it's a trip, because we got an ad here for Secret Wars 2 number 3. Wow, I just remember the series being so awful, and just like the coloring and the inking of stuff, definitely by the late 80s, it was like the coloring wouldn't match. It would be like slightly printed outside the inked lines. Wow, I can't believe Secret Wars 2 was under Jim Shooter. Is that true? I gotta look that up. So, there is the third comic I got from the dollar bin. It's the fourth comic that I have reviewed so far. And my last one is Snake Woman, Shakar Kapoor's Snake Woman. This came out a while ago, around 2006, from Virgin Comics, which, as I pointed out in my earlier vids, got bought internally. There was a buyout, internal management bought it out, and you've got the comic changing to Graphic India. So Virgin Comics becomes Liquid Comics, and then they have their comic book label called Graphic India. And a lot of these Virgin Comic labels were reprinted under the Graphic India label. Got this for $1. Came with the cover detached. Hey, what can you say? It's $1. You can't go wrong. If anybody has any comments about the dollar bins, or you can't go wrong, or the dollar bins are great. If you're new to reading comics, or if you know somebody that's new, you can save so much money by just taking a few risks here and there, checking out different types of artists. You might not like the comic, but maybe that artist or that writer can turn you on to something new. So this is from 2006, cover date July. Snake Woman. And I had covered this book. Issue number 7 had a really hot cover that I covered. Issue number 7 had a really hot cover that I covered. Yeah, in my previous vid. Let's do Snake Woman. The director's cut, by the way, with Snake Woman, it's not like it's a director's cut printing where they're going to have extra material in the back, maybe a script with writer notes or something. Director's cut was Virgin Comics at the time, they would hire film directors to write comics, people in the business. So John Woo did Seven Brothers. I know Nicolas Cage and his son did a comic. I think it was called Voodoo Child under Virgin Comics. So, Snake Woman. You start off here with this guy that got bit in the throat, and he's freaking out. Going to kill us all. I don't know if you recognize the artist in this, but if you know the comic book Alias, written by Brian Michael Bendis, maybe you've heard of Michael Gaydos. Gaydos. What we got here? Variant cover art, Michael Gaydos. Art, Michael Gaydos. Zeb Wells did the writing. And this is about this ancient goddess, Naga. And this village was decimated by these British colonists, British conquerors, from the East Indian Company a few hundred years ago. They ended up killing everyone in the village, decimated the village and the temple of Naga, this serpent goddess. So there were 69 of those British colonists that did the travesty against the village. So this goddess is going to come back and kill all 69 of those men in their new lives. Each lifetime, each person that Naga is reincarnated into. Naga is the avatar for whomever body she is reincarnated through. In this case, it's this woman that some like Midwest girl comes out to LA. She's got her own place. She's working at a bar. She's getting to know the locals. Here she is, this guy named Raj, just moved into her apartment. He's flirting with her. So he's flirting with her. He wants to, hook up with her, and she's kind of like cold shouldering him. And her friend is like telling her to go for it. You got to go for it. Do it. Her friend's name is Jin. Her name is Jessica Peterson. And Jessica Peterson is the woman that Naga is using as her avatar to wreak revenge. This girl doesn't know it yet. She's at work right here at the bar. There's this bum here that he's kind of like, he's out of it. He's singing songs and stuff, but his songs are kind of prophetic to what's about to happen to her. Look at the approaching lass. She emerges from her city lair, a maiden small, but kind and fair. Look at the approaching lass. So anyway, this woman, she's kind of got this plain life. She's putting herself out there in LA, but she's not willing to take risks, apparently, and her friend's giving her a hard time, and her friend end up hooking up with that guy, Raj, down the hall, the new guy that just moved in. So now her friend Jin is like really just drilling it into her that she has to take chances and put herself out there. And so she's at this bar, and one of her customers has this bracelet on, and for some reason she says, isn't it Naga? Her eyes turn black for a moment, and this guy's like, how did you know? So she's flirting with this guy, he's flirting with her, and she actually says, do you want to get me out of here? She's like, do you want to walk me home? Right there, that's a pretty stupid thing to do. He's like, yeah, if you insist. I know I read in a description of this book, they said that she initially becomes Naga when she's under stress, and they said that she gets date raped for the first time when she's going out with somebody. And this isn't like a date rape. This guy, it turns out, he was baiting her, the guy with the bracelet, trying to see if she would recognize it, because he says right here, he's like, there's no need for games. I know why we're here. And she's like, what? By the way, this is the second. Devi is a great comic. The this Indian goddess. This is Greg Horn, did the cover for issue number 2. So now he's saying, you identify me by the insignia on my bracelet as Naga, the cursed snake god of the lesser Kabini breeds. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? And so he just starts attacking her, saying how he's assuming that she already knows what's going on. He's like, it'll be so good to be through with you, to be the one that kills you. And he's just wondering, like, if I take your body to desecrate, he's like, will it feel it in the next life? It's pretty evil. And he's like, quit whining. It's not like it's your first time. He's talking about how he's going to be rewarded for killing her. She's crawling to her apartment. He's like, I got something for you, something for all of us. And he's like, all 68 of us. So I guess there were 68 of these colonists that are getting reincarnated. They have to kill her each lifetime before she kills them, I guess. And then he's like, all 68 of us. And then there's this like chanting in another language in green. He's like, what? And then she's back with her friend. Her friend's like, what the hell happened? So now she's having another flashback back to what happened, to what we were just getting at. He's like, all 68 of us. She's like, 67. This is great. He's like, what? It's like 67 of you. He's like, no. So she attacks him. Apparently rips his throat out by biting him. I gotta say, for all that buildup, they should have at least shown the action of her killing the guy. And the way Gaydos, the artist, is depicting their movements, it's very stiff. I mean, I did have fun reading this. I liked reading it. I guess a lot of it is too because I'm used to the slow buildup, the written for a trade paperback. That's what a lot of this seems like. It was written for a trade paperback. Reading it was fine. And definitely, once again, it was $1, y'all. I just found out recently from, what is that? Street Smart Joker Collector and Neo Comics, those Indian YouTube channels. Gautam Chopra, this is the son of Deepak Chopra. His name was Gautam, like Gautham, but he changed it to Gotham. Make it more catchy, marketable, I guess. I don't know if that's official. I doubt it. But if you see Gautam Chopra, that's the son of Deepak Chopra. And Gotham is still associated with printing comics through, like I said, Graphic India, which is a subsidiary of Liquid Comics. Indian comic book publishing. Raj Comics is like the largest Indian comic book publisher I found out. They have their own Indian superheroes. I hope you enjoyed these comic book reviews. That last review was a little weak. I know. I just wanted to get in a 5th one. I don't think I'm going to be doing 5 straight comic book interviews so often anymore, but just wanted to point out the beauty of the Dalahalas. Holla. And that's my show. That's my gambit. That's my take on comic books. They're not just to be slabbed. They're not just to be bagged and boarded. There's more out there than just regular superhero comics. But the drama and the excitement in this Fantastic Four comic, I gotta say, was fun. There is something about superhero comics that there's, the literal sense, the left to right, the time, as time is going by, there isn't a lot of stuff flickering around like with some of these other comics. How to explain it? fast pace, the pacing too, I would definitely say, and a lot of just straight to the punch type stories that for 65 cents for a limited amount of pages, that's fun. If you want something that's not as condensed, there's comics out there like that. Stuff that's written for more of a trade paperback, which cannot necessarily be wrong. And then you've got stories that are individual stories as part of an anthology, like Wheat Paste. Each story is different. Some of the characters might meet up with each other, but this is an anthology of just individual stories that were $5 a piece. Yeah. And I did Young Lust by Bill Griffith, the creator of Zippy the Clown, and Jay Kinney with that last story about Spiegelman. That was just $1. And let's take it back to Desert Storm. This is the favorite comic that I reviewed. I have to say this is one of the favorite comics that I've been finding from the dollar bin. Love historical material, though. I'm biased like that. So let's leave this up there. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for stopping by this part of your sequential hood that loves you and wants to share that sequential love by checking out comics, reviewing comics. I do also talk about key books and collecting what's the latest and greatest, or trying to do some long-term specs, stuff that isn't necessarily based on immediate news, what's been optioned, but there are a lot more specs out there than just the regular top 10 or what the immediate news hype is, which is fun at the moment, but there's just so much saturation of that on YouTube. I'm glad I had a chance to make this vid. There's a lot that I reviewed here. I'm doing 5 comics. I'm probably going to do maybe 2 or 3 reviews and then add a comic book haul on the end of the vid. So ladies and gentlemen of the United States military, thank you for your service. God bless. Thank you for watching. Y'all stay safe. Peace.